How is everyone feeling? You know what happens if I don't get that response. So how is everyone feeling? Okay, good. So we will start this morning with a song again. And this song is called Come Gather Around. And today we thought some of us who know the song will sing it. You are most welcome to join, and we'll pass out some words. But you can also just pay attention to the words, because there is deep significance in what we'll be singing, and just see what does it mean, what is being trying to said here. So we'll do that, and then we'll continue our session this morning. So we have 6 pieces. We need one. Are we going to sing? We are going to sing.
I think we should stand.
Let's stand.
We should stand. Now I have to warn you, I am not noted as a singer. These two actually do. You should stand in the middle. Okay, I have to. Oh, we got 4 of us.
Very good.
Good.
Sadhanaji.
Now we have somebody who can sing.
Anybody know the song? Okay.
Okay. Should we stand like
know the-
this or like
Oh, you have.
in a row, or
okay.
how do we do it?
I don't know.
Okay.
Whatever seems to.
Oh, that's good. That's good. There we
Okay.
go. One. Who starts?
Okay. Here it.
Sadhanaji, you start.
Come gather round, let joy sing out today. Dawn now is breaking, and the mountains say, it's only light can make the darkness run. Lift up your head, greet the rising sun. Greet the rising sun. Some people think to harvest happiness by weeding troubles, easing every stress. The trouble is that troubles never end. Get rid of one, and you face its friend. And you face its friend. It's in your heart. The songs of joy resound. You'll hear but echoes in the world around. Wind on a hill sounds lonely if you're sad, free if you're free, cheerful if you're glad. Cheerful if you're glad. Friends, come with me. We'll chant of battles won, shots not of anger. Joy will be our gun. Before the light, the veils of sorrow rend. In inner freedom, all delusions end. All delusions end.
Okay. So this is our last session this morning, and we want to make the most out of it. And we have some activities planned for this morning, because we want to involve your participation more as we are trying to conclude this now. But I just want to start by, yesterday we spoke about, I started on those, happiness thieves, sense pleasures, and there were a few others, which I said are looking for happiness under the wrong mountain. And like Jayaji used a very good example yesterday. He talked about that hot air balloon, which has, ropes tying it down. And just thinking about it yesterday and this morning, I thought it's exactly like that. There is nothing that we have to really do to be happy, except for remove those, you can say, curtains, which are, in front of us. You remove the curtains and the sunlight is always shining, isn't it? But if you close the curtains, or if you let them be, or if you don't know what the curtains are, in our case, we are knowing now what the curtains are. When you remove them, the sunlight comes forth. So I want to talk about just 2 more things now, because it is very central to our experience of happiness. It affects our happiness and how we can choose to be happy under those circumstances. One is Swamiji Yogananda ji said, desires. Now, what are desires? Jayji referred briefly to them yesterday. Desires for, this thing or that thing. When I get this, when this thing happens in the future, then I'll be happy. And in thinking about it, how contradictory it is, because here we are saying happiness is within. We are trying to say, nothing can hold me, I am happy in myself. But what happens when a desire comes to our mind? We want something, and what is that implying? That we want this thing which we think will make us happy. Isn't that an affirmation of lack within ourselves? That we desire something because really, in a sense, we are feeling we're not complete. And that's how the mind works, this thing and that thing and the other thing. And it's so counterintuitive to what we are trying to do. On one level, we are saying, I am happy. But then this desire comes in, it makes a gap between what we're trying to affirm, and it takes us out there. And likewise, and it's so strange that if it was the thing, that particular thing that we think or we desire for, that had the power to make us happy, then shouldn't it have the power to make everyone happy? But it does not. Something may make me happy, but it's not going to make Anu happy. Or Shilpa might be happy by having this thing, but it's not going to make me happy. It could be a house, it could be a car, it could be a horse, whatever it might be. But that just proves that, like we were saying yesterday, truth is eternal. It cannot be your truth or my truth. And so it is. When these things come in our mind, they take us in the future and they prevent us from being here right now. And the second thing we spoke about, we briefly touched on, was circumstances. And this is a little more, intricate, because the ifs and the buts, like Sadhana Devi was saying yesterday, if this happens, I can be happy. When that happens, I can be happy. The trouble with that is circumstances are unpredictable. We don't know what will happen tomorrow. We don't know what will happen in an hour. And so to give your happiness into something that is unpredictable is again counterintuitive to what we are trying to do. It's like, and then the pain associated, in the beginning when we were doing our opening circle, somebody was saying, in changing circumstances, how do I adapt myself? There's pain involved. And what is the pain that is involved? Yesterday we were hearing Swami Kriyananda saying, all is change, all is change. The things keep changing, life keeps changing. And imagine yourself being in the ocean right now. And you're on the beach and you start walking into the water and you're standing there and the waves come, no? The waves come here, from every which way they keep coming. Now, if we start resisting the waves, can we really do it? If we say, I am going to stand here and let which wave come, I'm going to push it back. You can't touch me and you can't touch me. Even a ship can't do that. It has to flow wherever the water is taking it. And so it is something like that in our lives. When circumstances are coming to us, and they will come, whatever it might be, we have an option. We can either push them away and say, I don't like this, or we can just flow with them. Like a person in the water says, let me flow with this. And if we believe that, everything that comes to us in life is beneficial, is for our best, then why do we even have to resist something, It's just a matter, again, like Jayaji said, of our likes and dislikes, that our tendency to judge everything that comes to us, every person that comes into our purview as, does this make me happy or does this not make me happy? And those are the waves of feeling in the heart, that if we can curb that at its root and say, I don't care if I like it or not, it's coming. Because when we say I like it or don't like it, then it makes us happy or unhappy. So it's simple. Like we were singing in the song, happiness is simple. But it seems not simple because of these things, this mental baggage, these meannesses of the heart, which Jayaji was talking about yesterday, which kind of veil our mind and they don't allow us to see that. Again, just a very simple example. Suppose you're going in a bus and you're sitting and somebody behind you bumps you and maybe spills coffee over you, So what is your reaction going to be? First reaction, natural reaction. You're going to be upset. You'll be like, you're going to office and you were all dressed up for your interview and this person just drops coffee on you. And you turn back to give him a thrashing and then you see the person is blind. So what are you going to do? Will you still give him the thrashing? No. What changed? The coffee was still on your shirt now, but something changed. Your reaction changed. You stopped judging it, whether I like it or don't like it. You threw that out of the window. Now, why can't we have that power, like Jayaji was saying yesterday? of choosing that in every circumstance of life. Whether something good comes to us or bad comes to us. Yogananda said circumstances are neutral. And that's something to think about in our lives. Every circumstance is neutral. He said it depends on your reaction whether it's pleasant or unpleasant. Let's just think about these things as we move ahead now, and we'll go into an interactive session, and I'll just ask Jayaji to come now and explain what we'll be doing.
When Gaurav and I were riding to the facility here on Friday, Gaurav says, we have to tell a joke, so we were sharing some jokes and stories. And I thought he was going to, so I told him this one, and he didn't use it, so I'm going to tell it. And this is actually a story from Yogananda's life. And he was writing, in those days, 1920s, 30s, it was train. He had to go everywhere by train. And so he did a lot of train riding. And he was writing, so there's many stories from him riding on the train. But one of them was, he was riding on the train across from he was going back to Los Angeles. And across from him was a fellow, and I think the fellow was a movie actor, somewhat famous. And they were riding, and so they got into a discussion about, and I imagine the discussion somewhere went to the subject of yoga and health and these types of things. And the man stopped Yogananda and he says, well, before you go much further, I want you to know that Yogananda, I can imagine, was telling him the benefits. Maybe that's what led up to this. But he says, I want you to know, the actor said, that I am disgustingly wealthy. And then he paused for a moment. And I want you to know that I am disgustingly healthy. And he was very proud of himself, you see. So Yogananda just said, then paused for a moment. He says, but sir, tell me this. Are you disgustingly happy? And the man said, no. And so a discussion began at that point. And so it was. There's other stories on the train, but I'll leave it at that. But he was basically, people have wealth, they have health, and all of these things, thinking it's going to make them happy, like winning the big lottery. Some countries and places have these big lotteries, and people win the lottery, and naturally when you win the lottery, you're going to be happy, excited. Happy, I don't know, but excited, yes. And you're going to be excited. You won the big fortune. But they've done studies on people who have won the lottery. And it's usually pretty same. They're pretty much same. Their happiness level is here. And when they win the lottery, their happiness level goes way up here. And then it starts to go back down. And after about 6 months, they're pretty much back where they were before. Sometimes a little bit up. It depends on where they started. If they were facing some terrible pressures, the money helped them on that. So they'll be a little bit up. But basically, it went back down to the basic level of a person's general happiness level. Whatever happens, we have that sort of specific gravity where we're going to float at a certain level in the water, and we bounce up and down a little bit, but we tend to come back. And these are things that have been inculcated in us over lifetimes, probably. It's not something that you get momentary blips and ups and dips, but you come back pretty much to a certain level, and it's what we want to change. But we're going to today, we've talked about this for a couple of days already. Watch out. You're making me nervous. We're going to, we've talked about these, but now we want to sum up a little bit of what I'm going to ask for your participation in this. And if you don't volunteer it, I'm going to pry it out of you. Then I have my techniques. But before we go, I want to go, this song was picked, I don't know who picked, Gaurav, I guess, picked the song. Swami Kriyananda wrote this song 50 years ago. And I remember, because when I first met him, almost that long ago, I remember he used to be singing this song. But I thought, you hear these songs and you don't really look at the words too much. But as we were reading, I thought, a couple of things stood out for me. And the mountains say, it's only light can make the darkness run. Lift up your head and greet the rising sun. In other words, you cannot beat out darkness with a stick. Negativity in your life, try to beat it. You can't beat this negativity out. You have to turn on the light. And this is you could say happiness, sadness, depression, these things. The solution is not mixing those things and finding the perfect answer on that level. You have to answer negative moods, negative states. You have to answer them on a higher level. In other words, you have to turn on light. You have to flip the switch. And you find when you flip the switch, the darkness is gone. It's gone. You all of a sudden you see something in a total different light. And that's what he's saying here. In a sense, that ability to change our mood, to change our perspective at the moment's notice as necessary, or do those things that will help us change. Because when you're feeling depressed, I think he even goes on to say that everything looks, if you're feeling blue, everything's blue. You know, you've got a filter on you and everything just looks like that. And he says that somewhere in here. But the second verse, and this is something that's always stuck in my mind. Some people think to harvest happiness, you get it by weeding out troubles, easing every stress. The trouble is that troubles never end. You get rid of one and you face its friend. And that's so true. If I could just get rid of all of these troubles, then I'll be happy. You get rid of one, you just created a vacuum to allow more in. And they just keep coming. You can't win by getting rid of all of the little troubles. Now, this doesn't mean that we should not try to get rid of troubles, because it's just life. Every day you've got to do something. You weed the garden every day. But that's not going to necessarily, just by easing those weeds out, it's going to lead you necessarily to happiness. You need something more as well. But it helps, because at least it makes room for something positive to come in. Then, this was the one. The songs of joy resound, you'll hear but echoes. Wind on a hill sounds lonely if you're sad, free if you're free, cheerful if you're glad. In other words, life tends to echo what we feel. If we feel depressed, we're going to be reinforced by what's happening outside. Everything looks that way. And this is something to keep in mind, that Yogananda said an interesting point. He said, circumstances are not good or bad. There's no such thing. Just like karma is not good or bad. It just is karma. And we make it good or bad depending upon our reaction to it. So circumstances, he said, are neutral in all situations. They're good or bad depending upon how we take them and how we react to them. It's just this life. You can't say that this world is good or bad. Just this is reality. The existence just is, and we are the ones who make this reality and color it, you might say, into what it's going to be. And then he finishes off. Shots not of joy will be our gun. Before the light, the veils of sorrow rend. In inner freedom, all delusions end. And that's what we're looking for. We're looking for that inner freedom. Now, what I'd like to do, as I said, is I've made a list here of 15 things. Now, are we going to be able to fill that up? Let's see. Because what I'm going to ask you to do is, yesterday, a little bit on maybe Friday night too, we spoke about happiness. Things that might help us be happy. Some of them you may remember. Most of them, it's in here, out there. We forget. This is how we are. They go. But what we are after is, when you go home, is you'll remember, let's say 3 things. Now, these three things are going to be different for each of you, I suspect. But we'd like you to remember three things. But not only three things. What we would like you to remember is three things and what you might put into action. What are you going to do from what you've learned this weekend, what we've discussed? What are the action items that you're going to have in front of you? What is going to stick with you in that way? And so what I'd like to do is I want to begin. Now, Gaurav and Sadhana Devi and myself, we could fill this thing right up with our notes. You see, each of us came in before this even started, and we're going to, I believe, have copies for everybody of these. We're going to, when you leave, we'll give you these copies. We, each of us independently somewhat, made a list of things points that we thought were important for happiness, and they coincide to some degree. So we could fill this up very easily. But we're going to start with you filling it up, and then we're going to also leave a little space, I hope, for us to fill it up, and we're going to come with these 15 things. They may not be the most important, but that's who's to decide. They're what you've remembered, and maybe what we think is our things are important. And so we're going to look at those first. And so I'm going to begin by asking you the question is here, the keys to happiness. What are the keys to happiness? Or you might say, what might be something to learn, to do, to practice happiness? What struck you? And it has to be condensed into a short sentence because we only have one line for each of these. And then after we get this filled up, I'm not going to tell you what we're going to do, but we're going to do something else with that then. But first we need to make this list. So who wants to start by what? Now, I've made a prediction to my friends here what's the first one's going to be, but let's just see if I'm right or wrong. Now, what might be one thing? What's? Oh, question. Okay.
Is that each moment we should live happily. It is the art of living, but it is at intellect level right now. How to make it habitual?
That's
Yes.
what we want to
Now,
know.
that's what we want. That's what we want. That's the solutions we're looking for. What do you think would be something that we could do, that we could practice, that we could take, or we could at least remember as important for happiness? And so, okay, now go over here then. What's the one thing?
I would like to control my ego.
Control the ego. No, I lost. I didn't.
I think he has
Okay, now wait a minute. We can't leave it at control the ego because that's too big.
more specific.
No, we have to, because we need to get it down a little bit condensed into a little bit more of an action statement. So you have to, because that you could say how to be happy, how to control the ego. They're all on the same broad level. We have to get it down.
I'll try to control my reactions to a situation.
That's better. Control my reactions. Now even that demands some what we're going to do, but at least to be aware of them is a good start. Be aware and control reactions. Be less reactive. Be less, how would we say that?
Respond and not react.
Respond rather than react, or don't be anyway, I'll see what he says. Can you all read that? Is that big enough? You might want to be a little bigger, but you have to just condense it. I think you could let the be out of, the just essential words. Okay, now while he's writing, I'm gonna go for the second one. Okay, what's number 2? Keep smiling. That was my prediction for number 1. My fault, you see, I had a 50-50 chance here who's to call on first. Keep smiling. Exactly, that's a good one. Now, okay, we remember 2 things. Now, do we remember anything else that stuck with us that we're gonna remember, that will be inducive of helping us be happy. Meditate. That was vying for first place with me too, but I thought, no, Smiley, that's it.
You can smile when you're anywhere, but when you're in a hard to meditate.
Yeah.
Not to be doing not to be judgmental
Don't-
for situation or people or anything.
Do not judge people or circumstances or don't be judgmental, non-judgmental of situations, people, circumstances, things, or whatever happens to us. That's good. That's good. Those are all four very good suggestions.
Service, selfless service.
Selfless service. Selfless service. That's a good one. Okay, yes ma'am.
So this is something that I tell myself: get out of your mind and get inside your body.
Get inside your body. Get out of the mind.
Look
Be
inside.
less. How do we? No.
Look
how do you
inside.
s-
Yeah. What do you say? Think less.
Think less, do more.
Yeah.
Think less, be more here and now.
Did you mean more in the body or in the heart?
Introspect, no?
Or introspect,
I meant-
somebody said.
I meant
do
like
something.
more. Yeah.
So think less, do more.
Think less, do more. Act rightly. Think less about it. Yes. Okay. Another one.
Do not stuck to any habits or do not stuck to any situations. Whatever happens with it.
Don't be free oneself from habits. Be free of habits. Don't act act habitually. Act freely, not habitually.
Now, actually, it is for me. I have this habit like I just want to ask you. This is my confusion. Now, my habit is every day I do to-do list.
Yeah.
What I'm going to do today, what
Yeah.
I'm going to do tomorrow.
Yeah.
So now, whatever work I have done, like I will tick mark that okay,
Yeah.
this work I done, this work I done. So I would be happy for that. The rest of the things which I have not done, I would be
Unhappy.
waiting to
Anxious about
So
it.
for that thing, I'm not happy.
Yeah.
So that I'm not enjoying my happiness, whatever thing I have done, but I'm not happy because what is remained. So what do you think?
Well, that's a
What do you say?
particular. Overcome negative habits or overcome bothersome habits.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
can go in this.
Yeah, I think that's act freely, not habitually to anything. That's the particular one in your case, but I bet all of us have something along those lines.
Feel oneness with infinite.
Say again.
Feel oneness with infinite.
Feel oneness with the. Okay, now you're going to have to. Now that's kind of like be happy.
If
You
one,
need,
if
you,
you feel
need to, you
oneness,
need to make. It's like the first one. You need to make an action statement out
For
of that.
yourself, personally.
How what would you say?
otherwise,
What are you
affirm-
gonna? What are you gonna? Because that's sort of like everything. So what are you gonna do?
How will you feel?
calm,
How are you gonna
be
do that?
calm all time.
You're gonna be calm all the time. How are you gonna do that?
It's not possible.
No, these are good goals. That's a good goals, but it's like you're just saying I'd like to do that, but what are you going to do? How are you going to do that? Something you can walk out of here and start doing right now.
Okay.
That's hard. Okay, we have another.
Control your emotions.
Control your emotions. Okay, that's be even-minded. Control, even-minded, under control, emotional control. Okay,
Try to be in present moment.
try to be in the. Okay, try to be in the present moment. Okay,
Or aware your.
how are you going to do that?
Aware your breathing.
Okay, try to be in the moment.
Stay in the moment.
Stay in the moment. Okay, stay in the. You could stay in the moment. Stay in the moment. we'll have to figure out some solutions to that. How are you going to do
Talk sweetly.
that? Stop.
Speak sweetly. Sweet words. Nicely.
Speak. All okay. Now, how are you going to? What we're going to? Your speech. You want to be nice. You know, speak. How? What's the action?
So that's
statement
going to
there?
make you happy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Happiness comes by
Kindness.
speaking.
Sweet words.
Yeah, putting out, projecting sweetness
In words.
through words, but it could be also other ways too. Let's make it bigger. So, actions that. I'll leave it for him to figure out. Okay.
Sweet.
Try to be with people who are more positive and who can, make you feel more happy.
Right.
And you,
Associate with positive, happy people. Or you have to figure out that first one first. Other one first.
This is easier. Let me just
Sweet like sugar.
write that on down.
It's being recorded.
Be sweet. Yeah.
Just joking.
Yeah. Project sweetness.
That's a good one.
How about that? Project sweetness. Okay. Okay, 1, 2, 3.
Indulge in creativity.
Indulge in creative actions. We didn't have trouble filling this up, did we?
Be neutral in positive and negative situations.
Be even-minded.
Equal.
Even-minded in all circumstances. In positive and negative circumstances.
Jaya,
Jaya.
may I request, when somebody is speaking, try not to stand between them and the camera.
I can't do it. I'll try, but I can't promise it.
Okay,
We're in a flow.
okay. If you can.
I have two things. Stop thinking too much
Yes.
and do not confuse yourself. Avoid confusions.
Avoid confusion. Avoid confusion. Now by
Stop.
avoiding, by
think,
not
think less is here.
speaking or not
The thing is,
thinking too much.
Avoid confusions or get your confusions to be solved.
Okay. Yeah.
Or be clear.
Yeah,
Be
get
clear.
clear and solve it.
Avoid.
Keep clarity in.
Let's combine those two. Clarity versus confusion. Let's be clear so as not to be confused. How do you?
But
what are we gonna
isn't that a broad statement?
Yeah. So
It's pretty broad. Yeah, that is pretty broad. I think we're going to have to go over these and actually
Yeah.
see if we can
Yes.
make these a little bit more
So
depth.
remember again, these are things that will make you happy.
Right. So we need one more, and then we're going to go back and we're going to digest these a little bit. Okay. This gentleman, Narendra, what's your
Learn music.
music? Music. Good. Music.
uplifting.
And
Chanting. Music.
Dancing.
Anything.
Dancing.
Okay, we do have one more, so
And
okay, let's fill it.
do whatever you want, but it should be right.
Do whatever positive action. Do positive action as you wish.
Whatever your mind says,
Follow. Okay,
follow
now
your mind.
that's a pretty good list.
I also
Now.
have one gratitude.
Should we gratitude?
I
Count
think
your
Should we put some more?
let's wait because we're going to keep going. Let's look at what we've got so far and see if we can make this. What I am after. You could say there are two things. One is the concept, which some of these are more concept, and then I'm looking to translate the concept into defined action statements. In other words, how are we going to do that? Now, I think Keep Smiling is a good example of what we're looking for because we know, okay, I need to keep smiling. Okay, I got that. That's some of these emotional control I think needs to be boiled down a little bit to make that, because that's such a broad. When it's too broad, we end up not doing anything.
Plus, we already have even-minded, don't we?
Yeah, so it's
So
like
that's kind of the same thing.
it's too broad, so it doesn't allow for an action to happen. So if we look at these, I think now the first one, awareness of reactions, that's pretty good, because I think you could add to that. It's sort of like introspection, self-awareness. So I think that's over. In the second one is an action statement. Third is an action statement. Non-judgmental of people and circumstances. That's a little broader. It's a goal. Is it an action? To be non-judgmental. Now it could be. So it could be. So let's hold off on it. Selfless service, I think, is sort of like in the 5 and 4 and 5. Yes, but what are you going to do? It's an attitude more than I think number 4 and 5 are attitudes. Think less, act more. Well, that's pretty broad. That's pretty broad. It's an intention, but it's not necessarily an action. Act freely, not habitually. Well, those are, I think most of these are intentional. Emotional, stay in the moment. Again, aware is project sweetness, keep positive company. It's a little more, yeah, that's an action thing.
Choose your company.
Choose your company, yeah. Indulge. Music is, yeah, be even-minded, do positive actions. They're not bad. Let's keep them, but now we're going to need more space. Now, okay, we've had our little board here. So, okay, now you've had your chance. Now I'm going to ask Gaurav and Sadhana Devi. Now we have a smaller board, so we have to be selective. What would you add to that? Look at mine. Okay. Let's see. I would add do things, Mama. Yes, you. Do things that express gratitude. Express gratitude, or to people, to life, to circumstance. Assume a grateful attitude and express it. Okay, Sadhana Devi,
Okay, I've got one.
what do you
So
have?
my list from yesterday, breathe. Breathe deep. Breathe.
Which one?
Breathe.
So she says breathe and breathing exercises.
Breathe deep. Watch your breath.
Breathe and watch your breath. Okay, I'm going to add another one. Pay attention and build relationships with other people. Positive relationships with other people and friends. Now that sort of relates to keeping good, positive company, but a little bit more. So build positive friendships.
Okay, I got another one. You keeping up, Gaurav?
Yes.
Okay. Keep your eyes uplifted to the spiritual eye, point between the eyebrows.
Why don't you add one, Gaurav, before we take up the whole thing?
Everyone has said whatever I wanted to say.
You did?
Let's see. Keep your eyes. I would say laugh often.
Laugh often.
Or don't take yourself too seriously.
How about we combine it with smiling,
Yeah.
laughing? I'm going to add, develop a regular routine of physical action or exercise. Physical activity. Keep yourself physically active. I think it leads to happiness. Or certainly changes moods.
Even for a moment. Just go.
Balanced diet. Balanced diet.
Balanced diet. I mean, that's balanced diet.
Balanced diets. Balanced diets.
Eat a balanced diet.
Satwik has one. Satwik has one.
Spend
Oh.
time with nature.
Spending time with nature. Oh, you guys are butting in here already again. Spending, going out into nature. Going out into nature. Okay, well I can see we're going to need it. We needed that second big board. No? Okay.
You can right up in the corners.
Gaurav, did you put some on there?
I put one.
Okay, I would say a practical thing to do to help you. What does it relate to happiness? That's some of these questions. I'll give it a rate. Is be consciously that's what I spoke on yesterday, so I should add this. Is to be conscious, conscious awareness. Practice those things that help us become consciously aware. Now, that would be pay attention to what you're doing and do what you do as well as you possibly can, whatever your task is. Do it really well, not haphazardly. And I don't know how to exactly to say that. Act consciously. Yeah, I think it's act consciously and with awareness.
No half-hearted efforts.
No half-hearted effort. I mean, put your attention in what you're doing.
I have another one. Let go of regret.
Okay, now, what's the time? Oh, time is passing. Does anybody have something that's really they have to get on that list? Your last chance. Sadhna, do you see your list? Gaurav, did you see your list? You have to put it on there.
Well, okay, I have one last one. Practice contentment and gratitude. Or did we already have
We have gratitude, yeah.
The 20.
We do. Okay. I have one more. Studies have shown that people who have a sense of purpose in life tend to be happier. And so and clarifying and developing a purpose in life. What is your purpose? What are you doing? And people who have such a thing, a goal, tend to be happier working toward it. So clarify purpose in life.
Clarify.
A clear purpose in life.
Have a clear purpose in life.
Clear purpose in life. Okay, are we done? I'm. Yes. That's kind of regret and no regret, not in the past.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a good. That's good.
Say yes to life.
How do we say that? Don't live in the past. Live in the moment. Live now, not in the past. Regrets, memories, bad memories.
Don't live in the past and move on.
Move on. Yeah, don't live in the past and move on. Yeah. Oftentimes unhappiness comes when we're in the past. So you could say to be happy would maybe one way to get, But I'm sort of actually what I guess what I'm looking for is how do we say that in a positive way as an action statement? We would say, if we're not going to live in the past, live in the moment, or live in the moment, let go of the past. Yeah, yeah, let go of the past. Maybe that's more of a positive way to say it. Now, okay, we have to move on because otherwise we'll spend too much time on this. I'm now going to do a little, I want you to look at those things. Now, which ones are important do you think are important? We have a whole bunch there. Now, this is sometimes painful because we want to choose all of them, or we want to choose many of them. But I'm going to ask you, and my purpose here is if you were to go home and remember, let's say 3 things, which 3 would you take to do something about? And when we'll give you the handouts for all of the rest, which you can refer to in the future, so you don't have to worry about forgetting them, but we want you to take 3 that are meaningful you this week. Not that the others, you can pick the others up in a future week, but which in this week, this month, right now, which 3 might you want to practice? Might you want to focus on doing? Not living in the past, smiling, meditating, whatever it might be. You think about that, because I'm going to ask you to vote on that, on this.
Want him to come up and tick?
Yes and no. I've got the Dharna here, very generously spent his time giving me these little sticky things. And I'm going to give each of you 3 of them.
Maybe Gaurav and I can help you with
Yeah,
picking up
give
3
each,
of them.
start over there with giving each of them 3. Here's 3. Okay, you go here and you go 3. Take 3. 1, 2, 3. 3. 1, 2, 3. Oh, here you go. Here's the 3.
What is this? Right on this?
Okay.
Yeah, don't write anything on them
Don't
yet.
write anything on them. No, these are just your vote ballots. Okay. Who didn't get one? Dharna, you get to vote too. And Sanadevi, you get to vote. 1, 2, 3. You got 3? You got 3? And I have exactly. This is that's exactly how many we had. Okay. Now, what I want you to do is look at that, and when you feel what's important, what 3 are important, I want you to come and take one of your stickers, and you go, not to make any, let's say, and just, if that happens to be the one you choose, and just put the sticker right there, somewhere along with that particular one. And which 3 are you going to focus on? Now we're going to, okay, that's the first thing we want to do. Now at any time, and don't look at your neighbor, what they do. You, for yourself, which 3 do you want to focus on? And you put your sticker there, okay? Who wants? You can all come up right now. Just boom, go up there and do it.
Yeah, whatever is most meaningful to you personally.
Yeah. Because these change over time. I mean, I'm going to put one. What I'm going to have to work on in the next month here. We think these are the things, if we do these things, these are going to make us happier. Help us. Gara, like we went off our block.
And also, does everyone have a notepad? So do write these 3 things also in your notepad.
Yeah, if you have your notepad, write the 3 things that you have chosen down so you don't forget. I have to do that too.
No, second one. Happy about that. Oh, there was something like that. Wow. Yeah, I know, right? Why did I write so bad?
Okay, now, Gaurav, with your, did everybody, darn it, you put yours on there too? Okay. Now, Gaurav,
Yes,
take
sir.
a photograph
Okay.
so that we have this, we have a record. Oh, indecision.
Now everyone will know.
Yeah, what is he working on? I'm not going to judge it. But okay. I'd say think less, act more.
Okay.
Okay, now take a picture.
Jaya, could you please stand aside? And then I'll also take a picture.
Okay. Okay. We're going to make these, write these up into notes, you know, and we share these with you.
Jaya?
Now I'm going to do something.
Jaya, can you move aside so I can take a picture also
picture.
before you erase it?
Okay.
Thank you.
You take a picture too.
Okay, thank you.
Go. Got it?
Taking a couple. Paste them together later. Okay.
Okay. Now I'm going to do something very cruel here. I'm going to erase the ones that didn't get any votes. Be even-minded. Oh. And okay. So now, what we want to do is we want to. Did any of you read the title to our on the internet that we had that was attached to our workshop? We didn't make that title up. The retreat staff made that. Somebody, maybe who made, said 7 tools. And when we were coming, we said, "What are the 7 tools?" And we didn't, because that was sort of tacked on, because we had long lists. So we thought, we're going to get down to 7 tools here. But these are the ones that you have chosen that and what I'd like to do here is again, I'm going to winnow this list down a little bit. And so consequently, those that only have 1, I'm going to take out.
That was you, Sat?
Non-judgmental. Oh gosh, that's a good one. But away it goes.
You know, what I think should take off meditate even though it has a whole lot. Because I think all of us know that. We're going to do that.
Yeah.
My
Well,
movement.
but all the rest, whoop, positive company.
So important.
These are so important. Project sweetness. That was me. Stay in the moment. Not that these are not important. I don't mean to be saying that. But we have to, in order to be able to focus a little bit, keep your eyes uplifted. Very important. Now, how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9. Well, it'd be hard to go less than 9 because there's a lot of 2's in here.
There's 10 actually. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10. Yeah.
Okay.
So we have 10 things that we're going
Now,
to do.
can you,
Yeah.
Gaurav, take these 2 off of here and put them over there, or somehow consolidate the 2 boards?
Sure.
Now, and I'd like to begin a discussion on, so that we go away. Now those ones, if I erased one of yours, you have it on your list. And so even though we're not talking about it now, you focus on it, because that's something for you. But what I'd like to is, I'd like to look at these, and I want to look now, what is the problem that, or the obstacle, you could say, that's preventing us from being able to accomplish what we want to do? Because this is often what it comes down to. We have this aspiration, in this case so many people put on meditation, we have this aspiration to meditate, but we have the obstacles to what's preventing us from being able to do that, take that up, and to see if we can just look at some of those obstacles. And when we look at the obstacles, we'll take them one by one. Certainly we'll do the ones with the most markers first. And we'll take them, and then Gaurav, on the little board, we can write down some of these obstacles and see if we can answer a little bit of quickly how to overcome those obstacles. And I want your help in this, of how to overcome that. But while he's doing all that, I'll just bring up this one of meditation. Now we've put meditation on the board. Is there anything that's preventing us from doing that? What is it? Is there something that I'm hoping, if those that put that on the list there will say, that's an intention. I want to go home and start. Is there anything that's going to have to be overcome to do that?
Short of time.
Short of time. Yes. Short of time. Does anybody else have that problem? There's a problem. Short of time, be able to fit it into a busy schedule, to be able to put it into a busy schedule. So just put time or something there. What other major obstacle you might have? Irregularity is an obstacle. And what makes you irregular? Is it anything outside of yourself? It's inside. Well, that's in one sense it's easier, and it's also more difficult to answer. But irregularity, anything other obstacle that is going to stop you from being able to do this, or you might think, oh, I want to do it, but what do I need to overcome? Well, usually it's if you have the will, and this is what I'm glad there's not a lot of obstacles being listed here, because if you don't perceive an obstacle, then I'm going to make an assumption that all of you are going to start meditating regularly or irregularly. At least you're going to be able to start. And this is the important thing. It doesn't, when I when I started meditating, I met Swami Kriyananda, and this was in 1968. I had tried to meditate a little bit before that, but irregularity, I'd never made much progress. But I tried probably a year or so before that. And when I met him, after the class, I asked him, or no, he gave a class series, and he said we should meditate. I said, yes, I'm going to do it. I'm going to start. And then I went home and I started meditating, or at least trying. And I came back the next week and he asked me, how did you do? Did you meditate? And I said, well, because he had said to meditate a half an hour every day. And I said, I can't meditate a half an hour. And he said, well, how about 20 minutes? I said, no, I can't meditate 20 minutes. And he said, well, how about 15 minutes? And I said, no, I can't. And he said, stop. How long can you meditate? And I saw where, and when he asked me that question, I immediately saw where my logic was going. 15, 10, 5, 2, 1. You know, it's going to end up at 0 if in that way. And so I was basically saying that. And I says, no, I can meditate. And I don't remember if I said 15 or 20 minutes, but I said I can meditate that much. And that was the beginning, because I had said I wanted to begin. I will do an X amount. And the important point here is it doesn't matter how much length, but it is important. The question or the obstacle that you bring up is irregularity. It's very difficult to create a new habit, is what we're trying to do. We're substituting a new habit, perhaps for an older habit, if you're irregular. So I think you don't want to set your goal so high that you cannot be regular. It's much more important to be regular with 5 minutes than irregular with 30 minutes or a half an hour or an hour or whatever it is. You think you're going to make it up by doing more, but you don't. It's the regularity that's the most important thing. You sit down, you pranam perhaps to your altar, and you sit there for 2 minutes with a devotional attitude trying to meditate, and you're too restless to sit longer and you get up. Okay, that's where you start. So and I asked her the question, is the regularity imposed from outside or from inside? And she said inside. And that's where she needs to find that point where she can do it regularly. Even if you just sit and go about your business, you remembered that, then that's a start. And of course, once you have a regular habit, then it's easy then to build on that habit. And so keep that in mind. And if meditation was one of the things that you marked on there, mark that obstacle, irregularity, and write that down. Because what we're going to do now is I would like you to think about whatever it was that you had chosen. Now I know I erased some of them, but if some of them are still on the board, think of what it is that's going to prevent you from doing and going forward and carrying out the action to actually make this an action statement, something you will do. So meditation, I'm assuming all of you that put those marks of meditation on there, I'm assuming all of you have no obstacles beyond 1 or 2, and that you have no obstacles that you're going to do it. Now, finding time. How do you solve the problem of finding time? That was yours, right? Finding the right. Is it a regular time or just general time? Do you find, is it regularity that is the problem, or because life is it's something outside yourself rather than inside? What does he do?
I think he should do what you just advised noticed that when I've made a commitment to do something, no matter whether it's regular or not, you know, okay, I did it on Monday this week and Thursday next week and so forth. If I just sit down and do it, time tends to even out for me and give me some opportunities that maybe were not there before. So I thought I was going to meditate every Friday, but it didn't turn out so well. Maybe I'm going to have Saturday open all of a sudden. Things like this. That's what I'd recommend.
Can I?
Yes, if you
I will
have a
just-
good.
I won't say what he should do. I will say what I have done.
If it relates to that
Yes,
question.
yes, yes,
Yes.
I was facing a same situation like what he had. That was way back in 27, 28 years ago when I was very busy in my work. And I used to find, oh, I have no time. So I'm busy. So what I started doing it, I started getting up little early, say half an hour early than what I normally used to. So instead of getting at 6 o'clock, I started getting at 5:30. And as a routine, instead of going for a brush, instead of washing my face and going for a brush, I started doing a meditation. I went out and sat in my hall or in terrace and started meditating. And that's how I continued with that habit till now. So that's one of the answer.
I
what
think
follow.
I think that's probably the most simple and practical answer. Is simply if you need more time, get up a half an hour early each day. Now that's easy said, not so easy done because we have these habits. And oh my God, I can't get up now. But no, it's the most simple answer. Trying to break the time out in the middle of the day, very difficult because we have life, jobs, everything else. And the trouble with doing it at night is we're tired and we just don't feel like it. Just like, oh, and we fall asleep. But you just get up a little earlier. I think Narendra's.
It is working, sir. Last 1 month I am trying.
Yeah, working. That's the best thing. I think too, and I think what Sadhana Devi has said about commitment. That's, you might say, the use of our will. I said I was going to do something. I'm going to do it. Now, that is has deeper implications, because you find if you do what you say you're going to do, especially to yourself, now to others also, but if you say you make an intention, I'm going to do this, and you do it, this builds inner strength. It builds a foundation of inner strength, and it actually is something that also leads to happiness, because it's a foundation of truthfulness to do what you say you're going to do. And what happens, now this, you may think that this is not true, but what happens is when you say you're going to do something and you do it, it actually, a power begins to come to you. Your power of intention, the universe begins to support you in what you say you're going to do. Somehow it reinforces you. I remember there was a story in Swami Kriyananda's life how he was in, I think he was staying in Italy at that time, and where his house was, it was a good 20-minute drive into the local village, and he wanted to. Maybe it was Sunday or it was a certain day. He wanted to read the newspaper, and so he told his person who was driving him. He says, "I'm going to town. I want to go to town, and I want to get a newspaper." And so he said that, and then he was doing a few things, and then somebody just at that time came and gave him a newspaper. And he said, "Oh, okay, thank you." And then but then he went and he says, "Okay, it's time to go." And the driver said, "But sir, you got the newspaper already." He says, "Yes, I know, but I said I was going to go to town to get a newspaper, and I'm going to town." And he had it in his mind. Now you could interpret that as just being sillily stubborn, or blockheaded minded. But there was more to it than that, because he said, "No, I put my energy in motion. I wanted to go to town, and I'm going to go to town." And it didn't set right with him to not follow through with what he said, because it was a principle in his life that if he said, I will do this, he would do it. Now, I knew him for 45 years, and I listened to probably, I don't know, hundreds, thousands of discourses that he had given over the years. And he said he was going to give a discourse at such and such a place, such and such a time. And he never canceled or said, because some things would come up. And he would always show up and do it. Even if he felt badly, he'd always, there were exceptions. Now he wasn't so stubborn that he wouldn't allow life to change his plans. And so there were, but it had to be something very important. A couple of times it was because he was so ill, he couldn't get it up and move. Or there was some very important thing came up, and then he would have to find somebody to take his place, to take that class. But it was, I would say over those 40 plus years, maybe 10 times, something like that. Very few that he would cancel on, because he said he would do it. So I'm going to be there. He said people are expecting me, so I have to be there. And there he was. So regularity. Now, okay, that's our first one. Okay.
I have one more thing, a little different. So as a beginning meditator, this is something which might be helpful. The will approach is there, which Jayaji shared one. The other is, which I've found personally to be helpful, is is there anything you can't do when you like it or when you love it? So, it could be eating a meal, it could be going for a movie, when, you find the energy somehow to do it, And we often give this example, you're back home from office, very exhausted, and you go into the kitchen and there's this 50 dishes in there which you have to wash. And then you start washing them. And all of a sudden you get a call from your friend who you haven't seen for 20 years. And he says, hey, I'm in town, let's go to this mall, come, I'll treat you to dinner. And you're like, okay, I'm coming. You leave the dishes and you go out. And where did all that energy come from? So I've started to realize that if there's something your heart is in, not just mentally, I'm supposed to do this because it's good for me. But when with your heart you're like, I want to do this. I really like doing this. I enjoy doing this. Then I felt it's much easier to do some activity, And the second thing tied to that is, of course, you first need to develop a taste for it, So with something like meditation, perhaps we once have a good experience, even for 5 minutes. We feel peace, we stillness. You do that even a few times. And then when you're not feeling like meditating, just recollect that feeling. Oh, I felt nice when I, meditated. And that kind of, for me, becomes the incentive. Okay, I like doing it, let me try. Let me just sit like Jayaji is saying. So that's something, again, that could be helpful.
Well, this first one that we've picked on the list, meditation, it really is a key to happiness. And I'm glad so many people recognize that it's the foundation of so many of the other things that we want to do can be tied back to meditation. We said calming the emotions, learning to focus the mind to be one-pointed. All of these things, not reacting to what's happening in life. All of these things are a direct benefit to meditation. Something we didn't mention yesterday, or maybe didn't focus on at least, is through the practice of meditation, when we start to develop and live more from this part of the brain, this is also the seat of intuition. Intuition is hard to define. It's not something easy to define, but it's that knowing quality. You just sort of know something and you're intuitively guided. And that's the secret. People ask the question, well, how do I know what's the right thing to do? And should I do this? Should I do that? And that's asking for intuitive guidance. And our intuition begins to grow as we begin to meditate and begin to calm our guidance from senses and habits and these things which tend to be our guides. We tend to put those aside and we start to have a clean slate and we start to get inner guidance that comes, and it starts to come to us from within. Our intuition becomes a tool, a sixth sense, you might say. So it's very, very, very good that we've started on that note. Now, there's a number of things that have, or there's one thing that has 6 markers there, so or 3, 4, 4 markers. Develop a regular routine of physical activity. Now, this is for a good, balanced, healthy life. That's important. Now, some of the people who may have put that marker there, I'd like to ask, or anybody's welcome to answer, what's the problem of doing that?
I recommend we start with 1 minute of physical activity.
1 minute?
So let's all stand up.
Oh, he's clever, isn't he? Speaking of which,
Okay, let's just start walking in place. And now let's repeat what we've repeated before. Can somebody remember?
I'm awake and ready. I'm
Awake and ready. I'm awake and ready. I'm awake and ready.
I'm awake and ready. I'm awake and ready. I'm awake and ready. I'm awake and ready.
I'm positive, energetic,
Enthusiastic. I am positive, energetic, enthusiastic. I am positive, energetic, enthusiastic.
I'm positive,
Energetic, enthusiastic.
Okay, are we positive?
Now I only have one question. Was chai coming? Maybe not. Okay, my happiness level has gone down.
We can arrange that.
External source.
No, don't. If it's going to take a long time,
Yeah, I think so.
Too late.
Okay, you can take back your seats.
Okay.
If you want to drink some water, you can have that.
Yeah, we have water here.
Well, maybe we should just take a little water break here.
Okay,
Do we have water?
Yeah, we have it.
There's a little
Let's
behind
just
you.
take a little water break.
There's water right here. Well, I would recommend that if you have a hard time getting a physical activity habit established, maybe if you start every single time with what we just did, a couple of them or all 5 or 6 of them, that's easy enough and it doesn't take very long. And it's hard to argue yourself out of that one. You could probably do that. And then hopefully you'll expand it.
You know, if you take yourself too seriously, one good thing you can do, which I had a trouble with, but thank God I overcame it. The same thing that we were doing, sometime try doing it at an airport or a railway station.
Public place.
And a public place. I mean, of course, not in the middle of everyone, but just try to do it and see. I mean, you know for sure it's going to bring your energy up. You'll start smiling, but probably 50 people around you will also start smiling. It just kind of breaks just puts you into new territory. So, if you're adventurous enough, you can try it.
What if the police is behind you?
They can join you.
Paramahansa Yogananda used to, sometimes when he would travel, he would have a group of his monastics travel with him. And when he was, I believe it was in San Francisco, the story is he was giving a discourse in San Francisco, and he had a group of his lady monastics there serving, setting up and serving in one way or another, and they had accompanied him. And I don't know how many, but it was said that there was a group of them. And so what he did is at some point during the time there, they were in San Francisco in a public place, and he said, let's energize. And so he had them all go out in the middle of a very public place doing the energization exercise. And he said those ladies were so embarrassed, that they didn't want to do it. They just wanted to be, everybody's going to be looking at them. And so that made them very embarrassed. And so they were doing, and then, but he got them to do it. They were doing the exercises and overcome that public embarrassment. He says, what's the problem? You're doing a good thing. It's just that maybe they'd be interested and they'd pick it up too. And I think it might be in the same story, but there was a policeman there who was on the street, kind of watching them. And so whenever the policeman would start looking at him, Yogananda would sort of furtively try to avoid, scurry away and pretend like he was hiding something, And the policeman kept getting more and more interested in when finally he came up to them, he says, "What is it are you doing?" "Oh, nothing, sir, nothing, sir." But it was all in that light of, if you're doing a good thing, there's no reason to be embarrassed. Just be out there and open with what you're doing. And did I get that story straight, Darna? Do you remember if I had that story straight? Or was it two stories?
I'm remembering a little different.
Okay, how did you remember the story?
So what I remember is one story was he asked all the nuns to do it in a very public place.
Yes.
And another story was I think he and Dr. Lewis.
Oh, it was Dr. Lewis. I conflated the two stories, right? Yeah.
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 And they were standing in some place, and there was a pillar or something.
Yeah.
And every time the policeman would come, Yogananda would stand behind the pillar and keep doing it. and Dr. Lewis, of course, was very, very embarrassed. But the policeman came up and right in front of Yogananda. "Oh, what are you doing?" "Oh, it's just exercises, sir."
Dr. Lewis, you see, he was Yogananda's first disciple in America, and he was a dentist. So he was Dr. Lewis, you see, and so he was a dentist, and the people in Boston still to this day a little bit have their reputation, but particularly back in those days of being a very proper place. Everybody's very proper. They didn't, not a casual place, but very proper, very intellectual, very proper. And so consequently, Dr. Lewis, because he was a dentist, was very proper dentist. And he, doing anything that was out of the ordinary to call attention, he would become embarrassed about it. Yogananda tried to get him to it's a good thing. Don't worry about it, what other people think. And he slowly broke him of that habit. Okay.
Yeah, tea also coming in.
Oh, it is coming. Okay, so let's go forward then.
And water also coming.
So this laziness stop us. Exercise is reality.
Yes, coming back to what's laziness? What is it? What is the unwillingness?
We are on the bed, we want to sleep. We are sitting, we want to sit. We don't want to exercise.
Inertia. Keeping, you going in one direction and you just don't want to change that direction.
Because you are standing, we are doing. If you are not standing, we will not do.
What is the solution for that? Because it's a very well-known, documented fact that at a certain time of the year, when people make resolutions, like in the USA, it's usually January 1st, a new year. Everybody says, this year I'm going to do, and they have a list of things. And one of the things is to take up physical routine. And so it's well known that sports clubs and sports centers and gymnasiums, they sell many subscriptions of membership subscriptions in the month of January. And they know, come February or March, they sell you a 6-month plan. And they know it's not going to last. But why? What prevents us from developing a routine? I think sometimes it's part of it is we aim so high that we can't sustain it. And we make it outside of our daily routine. It's something special that I have to step outside of. It's not that different than meditation. We have to integrate meditation into our daily routine so it's natural for us. It's something we don't have to, we can do easily and fit into our routine. Same thing with physical exercise or any routine. How do you fit it into what you're already doing rather than going to that club in the other part of town? That won't last usually. Very rarely does that last. So my suggestion is look at your life. What are you doing? And how can you make it more physical? That incorporates. So consequently, when you want to go to the market, why not walk? Walk to the market. Why not carry? Why, instead of taking the elevator up, the lift, why not walk up the steps and walk down? Now walk down the steps. Why not substitute something you're already doing with something a little bit more physical? Now, what if you could, I mean, it's good. We, as part of our Yogananda's tradition of meditation, we encourage people to do these energization exercises every morning and do it first thing in the morning before you meditate because it's, but see it as, but I think it probably comes back a little bit to what Gaurav was said at the last time. If you want to do something, it's easy. If there's resistance to anything, when you resist, it's hard. So how do you turn something that into something you want to do, something that you gain benefit from? So any ideas? How do you develop? Yeah. Willpower.
Willpower.
Well, it is, but how do you develop that? How do you develop it?
So one simple thing, because it's actually to get us to do it, whatever you're saying, how do you get out of bed, how do you go? One is, he said, make a goal realistic. If you say, I have to go to the other side of town where my gym is and it's open these many hours only, it's already a little big. What you can do is first thing in the morning, because it's usually there's this subconscious battle between saying yes and saying no. Some part of you is saying, yes, I want to do it. The other is saying, no, forget about it. So I've seen, if first thing in the morning, just lying on bed, you can try this. You can just get up with a very uplifted feeling. Just say yes and just get out of bed. That too is hard. But maybe you don't even have to get out of bed. Just lying in bed, you can just mentally just affirm something, because that is the first step. And then you can build on that. But you're starting, rather than waking up in the morning and starting with the thought of no, and then your energy goes down, down, and down. But you start and just with the very thought, and you can train yourself every night before going to bed and in the morning. Just wake up with that positive, happy thought and then build from there. Now what do I do? Now what do I do? So that...
As Swami Priyananji did, no, the stubbornness, to bring stubbornness in the good qualities. Then only will get.
When I go back to the USA once or twice a year. I'll usually be there from anywhere from 2 to 3 months out of the year. And when I'm there, where I stay, it's about a half a kilometer, not a kilometer, between a half to a kilometer away, is a temple where I meditate in the morning. And oftentimes I'll get up in the morning and I'll say, I want to meditate, but I don't want to walk all the way over there. But I consciously, because I have other places I could meditate real close. I could meditate where I stay or closer, but I picked that place because it's almost a kilometer away. So I said, I don't want to go there. I just too far. But I found if I just get out the door and start, and usually most things are like that. If you just start and not make it so big that it's so daunting, but just to put the one foot in front of the other, then once I'm started, I'm okay. I'm out the door. I'm walking. I'm going, and I don't allow myself to argue. If you allow yourself to get into a debate, should I or should I not do this today? You've lost the battle probably already. You have to put that aside and you say, I've decided that a regular routine of physical activity is a good thing. Now, you have to then translate that into what are you going to do? What are you going to do? I'm going to walk more. I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to do these exercises. And once you decide, it comes back to doing what you say you're going to do. You see, and a power will come if you just do what you said you will do, you'll then begin to develop a power of support will come to you, and you'll find that in many things in life, your commitment to something in other areas of your life will strengthen. Just by committing to one thing, you'll commit to something else, and you become self-identified as a person of commitment. I do what I say I'm going to do. And if that happens to be walking or exercising, then it'll happen. So, but don't debate it. Don't get into a debate. Should I or shouldn't I?
But this Swamiji story will help us, sir. The newspaper story, no? This will help us.
When?
Newspaper story, no? The newspaper story you told.
Yeah, it's like that.
That is good.
Yeah, now that was an extreme example, but
No, but in a good quality it is good.
yeah, it's a good way. It's just being. But don't, once you start debating, you're lost. Should I eat that last pastry?
Yeah.
It's sitting in the refrigerator. Sitting there, it sits. Should I eat it or should I not eat it? Well, maybe, sooner you're going to eat it. You've lost already. So, arrange your environment to support what you want to do. Don't keep the pastry in the refrigerator, in that case. But in my case, I wanted to walk. So I set my meditation location conveniently far enough away that I had to walk there. And I always was, once I got there, I was always happy.
This diet, so yeah, I'll just add something and then. This diet to that, I found sometimes you can trick yourself when you know this inside battle is going to come. So how you do this, I've tried it a couple of times. You get up in the morning and you know you're supposed to meditate. But you get up, that's not the best time, you want to wash your face, whatever it. But you're at the back of your mind, I'm supposed to meditate, I'm supposed to do this. So what I do is, I do something first that I like doing. Again, that principle of what do you like doing. So I say, okay, I'm not going to meditate, I'm just going to go and make myself a nice cup of tea, which I do, I go to the kitchen. And then I say, okay, I'm not going to meditate, I'm just going to go back to my room. And there is, in front of my meditation where I meditate, there's a nice couch there, very comfortable. So I like to sit on that. I'm just going to sit there and my cup of tea is with me. And then I do something which inspires me. So I don't jump right into meditation maybe, but there is some good book, which I like to read, which will just stimulate me. Or did all of you enjoy the visualizations we've been doing during meditation? That's Swami Ananda. I'll just hear one of those. Not even consciously, I'll just play it in the background. And somehow it's like, you're winning each step of the way, getting out of bed, making that tea, sitting on the couch, reading something inspiring, putting on some inspiring music in the background. You don't just attack the problem, you kind of build it, And so it's been helpful. So you can do the same thing for a physical routine. Don't just say, okay, I'm going to go do it. Say, oh no, I'm going to go for a walk. I'll just wear my shoes. And like you were saying, just get out of the house, Maybe even with no aim where you're going, what you're doing. But that's the first step to kind of get us out of our comfort zone. And then, one step after another. So you were asking something.
How much time we should do meditation?
How much time should we devote to meditation in the beginning?
If you're not meditating at all from zero and you have no routine, you want to take something that you can sustain. And I think a good beginning point is 15 minutes. I think that's usually good because it takes that amount of time for the body to settle itself, to be able to settle itself and be still. But of course, if you can't do 15, you can always do 10, 5, or whatever it is that you can start with. But that's a good recommended time. And then once you become a regular meditator and you've developed a habit, you have a good habit, then I think you should aim for going up to about a half an hour. And then, but I'd say start with 15 minutes, and then get to be a habit at 15, and then develop it up to a half an hour. Then you'll find if you do that once a day, then you'll find that you may want to meditate a little bit at other times a day too. The best times to meditate are in the morning, early in the morning, uh, at night before you go to sleep at night, and during the day when you have breaks in the day, like noontime before you eat lunch, that's a good time. Just take a little 5-minute break, before you eat lunch and just calm yourself, get still. Before you eat, before you eat dinner at night, if you come home from work and before you're cooking dinner or whatever, before you have to get engaged and everything, and before the meal, if you have enough time just to sit then, that's usually good too. One of the obstacles of late at night is you're tired, and one of the obstacles in the morning is sometimes people find it hard to get up. But I think usually those are your best times. But any time is okay that works for you. Okay.
Just want to regarding your question, just want to know the Yogananda and Kriyananda, how much they used to meditate.
Well, Yogananda, over the course of his lifetime, he meditated all sorts of different times. When he was a young boy, before he became an adult with adult responsibilities, he used to meditate. He would meditate 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 hours at a stretch, often during the day. Sometimes he would meditate all night and up until the morning. So he would, and even as an adult, when he didn't really sleep much. He only slept a couple hours a night, and so he would, and by that time in his life, he was in samadhi all the time anyway. So it didn't quite apply to him. Kriyananda, what Kriyananda recommended for us as who lived at the ashram. Now he said that's a qualification, because an ashram is a supportive environment, which is helpful. He says, but as long as you're living in an ashram and you have that environment, you should be he used to tell us, you should meditate at least 3 hours a day. And for an ashram resident, he didn't necessarily mean that for people outside in the environment. He would, he recommended, often he'd recommend it to me he said he recommended a half hour. And I ended up at 15 minutes, but I built myself back up to a half an hour. And he said that's fine. But for people who are serious and want to become Kriyabans and go deeper into it and are really serious about it, then we would recommend, and this is more of an experienced person, then we would recommend a person build up to about an hour and a half a day, which would be 45 minutes or an hour in the morning, half hour at night, something like that. But you have to have the time for that. And it's not everybody at stages of their life that allows for that. So find something, and I say usually 15 minutes is a doable thing to start with, and then start with that, and you'll find. So, okay, now I'm going to, okay.
If you're new to Ananda and you don't meditate yet, haven't learned meditation, we have in Pune City, we have an ashram, or we have a center in Pune City, and we have satsangs several times a week. We have guided meditations and other things that you can attend, which will help you to learn to meditate, and then you can take classes as well. So I hope that we have that in your packet or whatever you received today with the phone number and the place to go. But if you don't, do ask one of us and we'll get you the information. Okay.
I'm going to move on to the next one, because I think this is a pretty universal one. And I noticed actually Keep Smiling was second, because I didn't see the 2 under and the 3 to the side. What are the obstacles to that? To smile, to think, to smile during the day. What is the obstacle? What's the obstacle?
Our environment and nearby the people, all are very serious.
Well, yes.
We forget to laugh and we forget to smile.
We forget to smile. It's a habit. It's simply a habit. You look and you just look in the mirror from time to time. That's a solution. You say, oh. But it also, the smile affects the thoughts that we have. We tend to our mind and our attitudes begin to follow the smile. But it happens in reverse also. Our attitudes affect our facial muscles, and if we have, certain thoughts, we begin to reflect it. But it works both ways. And so, consciously, I recommend that. Now, a little habit that I do is I stay at about 200 meters from where our office is. I'm close enough that I can walk back and forth. And when I walk to the office in the morning, I practice a little breathing exercise while I walk, and I consciously smile. I just very, very consciously smile. And once I get to work, well, then I don't think about it too much anymore. But I try to consciously smile at least once. And when I walk home, I also try to do it. Consciously smile. So I'd find a time make it a habit where he says, I'm just going to smile. And another time I set times in my life where I mentioned earlier, sometimes when I'm in a grocery store. When I'm in a grocery store and I'm going to talk to the cashier, she's ringing it up, I've always reminded myself, smile. Smile at the grocery person, because her day's probably been long and nobody probably ever smiles at her, and they probably are mad at her. So I said, I'm going to just smile at the grocery person, or the gas station petrol pump guy or somebody, and I just pick these things and I'm going to smile at these people. Not so much for their benefit, but for my benefit, just a reminder. So I think in a sense, you find something in your day just to remind you, and okay. And then you make it a habit.
Greet someone, like good morning or namaste or whatever.
Yes.
If we greet some unknown person, that also brings a smile on your face.
Exactly.
So if I am going through the lift and some unknown person comes in,
you just say namaste,
namaste.
and naturally you smile.
Yeah.
And why don't more people greet one another and say hello, good morning? That in itself induces a certain uplifted, friendly attitude in ourselves, maybe with them too. I think it's just a matter of reaching out beyond our circle of self-involvement. We have a certain energy around ourselves, and we don't think beyond that. If we can project and see people coming, okay, include people.
So worries and stress now in cities now, so that is making us away from smile.
It does, yeah, it does. There's lots of reasons why that doesn't happen. I mean, but we have to. It's a conscious thing to just, say hello to people or be friendly to the neighbor, to the lady across the hall. Hi, how are you today? And okay. And just, sometimes they're so surprised, and it changes us. So and you'll see, you start to make friends, relationships go better, people approach you, whereas before they might have been afraid of you, and you start to become happy yourself.
But to make a smile, we should be free, or with the stress we can smile. Inside you are worrying or something stress, and we have to smile. Is it possible?
Yeah. Well, why not? You can smile.
It'll make your stress go away.
Yeah.
Actually.
That we have to.
So I can't think of too many obstacles. It's just a matter of forgetfulness.
Forgetfulness, yeah.
It's just forgetfulness. Something to remind us. Have something to remind you in your day. When I see my neighbor across the hall, I'm going to smile, and just and say hello, and it's okay. Now, what other one do we have? Okay. No, don't.
I have something to add. I mean,
Okay. The rest are two. No, music is the three. We'll go music next.
okay. I'm remembering one suggestion that Yogananda had that would help us smile. He said, try to read one funny story a day. He consciously said that. And I think that may be behind why Swami Kriyananda chose to read so many books. And he had such a collection of P.G. Wodehouse stories. Because they were funny stories. And it was a light-hearted view of humanity. It wasn't, stories where, you make someone out to be very low or, a very positive vibration. Another recommendation from Yogananda was, if you're going to read the newspaper, which he didn't recommend, but if you're going to do that, and Jaya can correct me about whether he recommended it or not, but if you're going to do that, then the things to focus on are the headlines and the comic strips. I'm sorry. Headlines, editorials, and comic strips. And you could just ignore the rest. But the comic strip was in there, and that can help us smile.
Yeah, I think he made a point of reading the comic strips. if you're a newspaper reader, which he didn't recommend necessarily, but he said that's the best part of the newspaper.
Yeah, as a practical thing, I don't know if any of you have read P.G. Wodehouse. He's a very, very good writer and extremely funny. I think the hardest that I've laughed in life is when I've been reading his books. I'd recommend that and find something. It's also I've found the Reader's Digest, surprisingly, has very good jokes in it. I mean, the one I told in the beginning about that boy and his grandfather, that was from there. And they have lots of good ones. So find something and just keep it next to your bedside, I would say. So you don't forget. Just keep something there.
Just need to watch cartoons.
You can do that.
Now, what about?
I have one question.
Okay.
How does a meditation affect our body, soul, and mind?
She wants. How does meditation affect our body, soul, and mind? It's a very long answer or a short answer. The short answer would be it affects it positively. It basically put it this way, in a simple way, because that is a big question, you see. It brings the body, mind and soul into harmony, you see. And when we're harmonious, it begins on all levels. Harmony, things begin to fall into place naturally. Have you you've seen puppet shows where the fellows behind, they got the puppets on the strings? Or is that marionettes? Marionettes. The fellow is behind with the strings. If you pick the puppet up by the wrong string, it's all a big jumble. You have to pick the marionette, you have to pick it up by the right string, the top of the head or proper string, and when you pick it up by the proper string, it all falls into place right. But the wrong string, and it's all not right. And that's how it is, you could say, learning to pick up our life by the right string. And when we meditate, we pick up our life, we learn to pick it up by the right string, and then the body falls into place naturally, the mind begins to fall into place, and the spirit begins to fall into place. And then and that's harmony. When everything is in its proper place and doing its proper function cooperatively with everything else in our life, and rather than all at a jumble. And I think that's what meditation will do for us.
So puppet resembles our body?
And mind, it's all parts of our body. It's body, mind, and soul, and mental. So it's an image for all of those. Now, the next one on the list is the music. Some people put music there as something they wanted to remember. Again, what is the obstacle? And if it's not music, it's something else. It's because I think it's roughly the same question of physical activity, meditation, smiling, music also. What might be something we could do to overcome that obstacle?
I can't imagine where there would be an obstacle to listening to music. I certainly see where people don't want to sing or they don't want to learn how to play the harmonium. But an obstacle to listening to music? Or maybe we want to say what kind of music.
Maybe there's no obstacle.
Yeah, I don't. They're probably right. It's not so much obstacles, but I think the important point with music is choose the music that is going to lead you in a direction you want to go. If you're a meditator, if you're you could. What's going to help you accomplish that harmony? So you want to use music that's harmonious. It's going to harmonize you. Much modern music, most of it perhaps, tends to be ego affirming. It affirms the ego. I, me, and mine, I guess. It's ego driven because of in my concerns, my successes, my affirmations, and it tends not to be in that way. It's a little detrimental because it can be if, but sometimes it's fun too. I mean, we have to realize music has all sorts of variations to it. But you want to, if your music that will help you in a spiritual sense, should be those pieces that are uplifting to the spirit, or certainly that create a introspective mood that pull you inside rather than pull you out in rather than out, up rather than down. And you'll find it takes a sensitive sort of person to be able to feel that difference in music. But you go into the stores, the malls where they play music, loudly, and just notice, they're choosing their music very consciously for shopping. They don't choose it haphazardly usually, the good one. They'll choose it what's going to stimulate you in some way. And whereas you go in other places, you go that if you're in a meditational yoga hall, they're going to choose something that's going to be calming. It's going to be restful. So, but it can affect your mood. Now you want to, you can use music that's uplifting, and generally, if you're uplifted, you'll be more happy. The or you could music can also some like these songs that we were singing. They're just happy songs. And if you start having a happy song run in your mind, music does that. It gets in your mind, and you can't get rid of it. That's so, have one that's uplifting and happy rather than one that's depressing or not taking you where you want to go. Okay.
And then, I should tell them. Swamiji wrote more than 400 pieces of music, and along with that, Yogananda had many, many chants, as did Swamiji. And so if you want music that's going to be uplifting, that's the place to look. We have recordings that are available online that you can buy and so forth, as well as books on chanting that will tell you how the words and the music to the chants. So if you're interested in those things, that's what you can do.